Welcome to Master Agent Mindset, where we're chronicling the journey of Mr. Dan French. We're here to talk about prospecting and his journey so far.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for being on your show, brother.
Hey, man. I appreciate you having me. It's always a pleasure coming out here and seeing you and seeing the progress of this show and what you're doing and touching a lot of people. You're doing crypto. You're doing a lot of things.
Yeah, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I'm doing it well, but I'm doing them.
I think the big part is just doing it, right? Because that doing it well will come over time.
I think you're right, man.
So
you've been on a small little journey trying to figure out this prospecting stuff with Mike Ferry and his scripts and all that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're going through?
Yeah, I think with the whole situation is you really have to dig your heels in from this whole process. I think with where we're at with the leads and all the scripts and everything, it's all tools, right? Tools in your tool belt. But unless you're consistent and unless you have a certain regiment or kind of a game plan about how many calls you're supposed to make or how many people you should be talking to or what is it, everything's different, but the time frames. So, you're always looking for advice on if it was easy, everybody would do it. So you always want to find out from people that have done it, what is the realistic thing you should be looking for on your little journey here as far as seeing progress? Like what are some of the things that somebody out there that is getting started on this journey going like, especially like what you went through, where you didn't give up or you knew that there was things happening. You saw momentum, you saw activity. Like, when did that all hit for you?
Well, one of the big things that I see people go through when they're prospecting, they have several different waves that they go through. The first one is the excitement wave, which they get all the tools. They get the mojo, they get the dialer, all the leads that come from the expireds. They get a good idea of how to handle it and how to work it. And so they're excited. So that's wave one, And then they hear about all these war stories and these people getting these $1 million listings, right? And then they're counting the money. They're like, wow, that'd be a lot of money if I can get something like that. So that's exciting and fun, okay? But within the short orders, people will vary on the time. I usually give it a couple weeks, and then I could see it in their face, their frustration. What ends up happening, they make the calls, and they start counting the calls, right? And that's when the frustration starts to really set in. So they start looking at all these calls, and they're saying to themselves, I'm not getting any return. Okay, I've made so many calls or an estimated amount of calls, and I am not getting listings, right? And I've seen the inverse. I've seen people hit it out of the park in the first week, and it was actually worse for them because they started calling, they got low-hanging fruit, and they got a deal, and then that's how they expected everything to be from that point forward. And if it was to be that way, well, that'd be wonderful. But that's not it. So the first wave, excitement, exhilaration, and you're getting the stuff, and it feels good because whenever you're buying something, brother, it feels good, right? But then using it, reading the manual, understanding it, not so good, right?
Right.
All right. So we all want it real easy, and it's not like that. You can't buy your way to a bunch of listings. You just can't. If you could, then Zillow, Redfin, and all these Wall Street-backed companies would have wiped us out as realtors a long time ago. Trust me when I tell you, they have no reservation about wiping us out. None. Okay?
Yeah. And so here's where it comes down to is that if you're having, let's say that you call, and I've been making calls and I've just been talking with people and, I got a sphere of people I work with, but it's not, I'm going after listings. I've been working with more buyers. Everybody knows I've had a multifaceted background as far as in lending real estate, sales, just in banking. I mean, I've done a lot. And for me, the hardest part is that when you get somebody on the phone, you have, for instance, today we were talking with somebody and the guy was like, how'd you get my phone number? Where the hell did you get my phone number at? Right? Like this is a private number. And you're like, well, I'm just trying to call. I know that you had your property expired recently. And what we're looking for is just to say, hey, maybe we can do something different for you, right? What challenges did you have? And was there something that you felt that there was an issue when somebody did list it? And why did you not sell it? Before it gets to that point, what I'm getting a lot of pushback is, well, you're about the 9th or 10th agent that I've spoken to in the last 2 weeks. Where did you get my information? Because I'm over this, and they hang up. I think the problem is you have a lot of people going after the same fruit. So how do you overcome those challenges?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Welcome to Wave 2. That's Wave 2. So what ends up happening is you're making these calls and you start getting beat up. And I call that Wave 2.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't survive that wave. So the first few weeks, you're excited because you got all this new stuff, this new equipment. You're like, hey, this is good stuff. I'm liking this. You got a big fancy stand-up desk that you could push a little remote control button. It goes up and down. Then you've, whatever. Then you've got the mojo. You're learning how to do it. You become pretty good at it. But then the people start beating you up. And that part is the best part. I'm going to pause there for a little dramatic effect. Why is that the best part? Why do you think I'm saying that's the best part, Dan?
I think if you want my opinion, is that's your make or break. It's either going to develop a callus and be able to overcome objection, or you're going to be, I hate to say it, tuck tail and move.
Brother, I am seriously impressed. That's like the best answer I've ever heard. I've asked that question, I don't even know how many times. No one's ever answered it that good. That is the absolute truth. What happens is, and because you have your experience in the business is why you answered it so well. Are you going to pre-qual 100% to a closed contract every loan you do or every? No. And what happens is we get used to what I call winning and failing. Mm-hmm. Winning to failure is what it is. So you're actually winning when you're failing, okay? And wave 2 is you start getting beat up and getting discouraged. And I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and I'll mention it right now because it is worth mentioning. My first day of calling my SOI, I picked up 3 or 4 listings, all right? But when I started calling expireds, that was a whole nother world.
Oh, yeah.
My expectation was not met. I figured within a week, 2 weeks tops, I'd already be rolling in listings. But no, it literally took me 3 full months. And that's why I was so discouraged, sitting on the floor of my office, bummed out. I was literally on the floor because I didn't want to sit on the freaking chair. And I'm sitting there just kind of like, man, this sucks. I've got a family to feed. I got this to do. I can't be wasting my time on things that are not going to produce. Because obviously you can't work on things that are not going to pay because your wherewithal is only so far. Mm-hmm. I mean, I went 3 months without a paycheck at that point, right? So you can only go so far before you're gonna have to cut bait. And I was right there. I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I go and manage a mortgage company? Do I go into XYZ company? What do I do? And Mary Ellen McKenzie, she was a sales manager here in Las Vegas for our Berkshire Hathaway branch. And she just literally sat down. She's in heels and like one of these, office dresses, whatever. She sat right next to me. Not making no issue about it, just saw me, saw I was bummed, sat right next to me.
Sure.
And she said to me this. She says, what's wrong? And I said, well, it's 3 months. It's not working.
Yeah.
She says, it will. You need to get back out there. I said, you know what? I'm just thinking maybe I got to do something else. I got to figure something out. Nope. You need to get back out there. I didn't know what to tell her. But I mean, she sat next to me. I mean, I was a big step. I felt better. So I stood up, manned up, and went out to call. I'd love to tell you right now that I got something that next day or the day after. It took another week. But when I did, it blew up because I finally found one person that was willing to take a chance on me. That persons ended up closing, which made up for those 3 months of not getting anything. And then every week thereafter, just about almost like clockwork, every week I was getting a listing, right? And
so what changed? I mean, here's where people have to understand is that when you can't think that that's going to happen for everybody. Do you think there's a certain energy or vibe or something you're doing different? Because what was different from those 3 months versus then where, yeah, I think you were putting the time in, but it's almost like the universe rewarded you because if you're getting like one after that every single week, something had to change. Was it your personality or your thought or what? Did you feel better about the situation?
Wave 3. So what happened? So I finally got to the point where I believed in myself. So that was the difference. It's belief. So I at first was excited. Then I hit the lull where I was ready to roll out. Then I got a deal. Then I realized it was possible. And then from there, wave 4. So now I realized it could be done. And I started making the calls and I started getting it. But also, anything you do and you practice, you get better at. And it doesn't matter what it is. I shouldn't have expected of myself, and most people shouldn't, that you're going to get really good at making these calls and learning the dialogue and not sound it scripted, right? It's going to take you a few months before that happens. I have now, not then, but now have called that conversational selling. So conversational selling is, for example, we're having this podcast, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't sound scripted because I'm not.
Right.
Right? But I can go and hit that script and sound just like this with the same confidence right now. Right? And that made the difference, right? But wait, wave 4. What was wave 4? Wave 3, I started believing, I saw the results. But wave 4 was crucial. I started to celebrate when I didn't get the opportunity. And it wasn't me. It was me listening to Mike Ferry's tapes, right? CDs, whatever. Realizing what he's saying, brother, was right on the money. I mean, right on. And what he was saying is, and I didn't believe him at first, but basically he says, you need to celebrate failure. Every time you fail, you need to realize that you're that much closer to success. And then so what would happen is I would go out on these listing appointments and I wouldn't get 100%. I wouldn't get 70%. I wouldn't get 50%, right?
What do you mean by that?
That means, as an example, let's say this week I set up 3 appointments, right? But I'm still a rookie. I'm 5-6 months into the game and I set up these appointments, right? And I'm getting better and better on the phone. But all of a sudden, I don't get them and I get discouraged, right? And I come back to the office. I call it the long ride home, right? Where I'm freaking bummed because I'm driving home after a 20-half-hour drive with nothing to show for it, right? So I started realizing what Mike was saying is not only are you celebrating the failure of, for example, in one day, my goal was to make 50 contacts. I pulled it up to 70, then 80, and then to 100.
You would get that many contacts.
That's right. And a contact is defined by, because that's probably your next question. A contact is defined by a person that I had a conversation about selling or buying a home. Not someone that cussed me out and I use that as, no. If I ask them the question, a qualifying question, sir, ma'am, do you need to buy or sell a property here in Las Vegas in the next 30 days, or is there something I can do for you? Get lost, go to hell. that's a contact, right? For some people.
That's not a contact.
That's
right?
not a freaking contact.
What classifies a contact?
A contact. So I talked to Mrs. Jones as an example. Hey, Mrs. Jones, nice to speak with you. I see your house was on the market for an expired. Are you still interested in selling that property? They say,
Yes.
I am, but not with you. Get lost, hang up. I said a qualifying question. I got an answer back. And it doesn't matter if it's FU, this and that, but it was a qualifying question and I got an answer back, right? That's what I call a contact. A contact isn't an appointment. A contact is someone that I talk to about real estate and about buying or selling.
So I'm going to ask this question. I don't want to put this out. So for me, I think a contact would be somebody that gets on the phone, like you said, and gives you an opportunity to let your spiel out. And what I mean by that is if somebody says, hey, who's this? Oh, my name's Dan, and I want to talk to you about you listing your home, right? Okay. How'd you get my number? Oh, I found it on such and such.
Contact.
Right. But so here's where I'm at. If somebody hangs up on me, I don't know if that's a contact to me.
No, don't reinvent the wheel. This is the point. That's level 3. You're excited. You're talking to people. You're trying to figure things out. Level 4 is you realize that the system works.
I see.
Right? So once you realize the system works, I start listening deeper into Mike Ferry's teachings. And basically what he's saying is, get a legitimate contact. Try to make as many as you can. But then I was failing. I was failing at the pre-qualification side of it. So I would go to these appointments, 3-4 appointments that week, as I was trying to give you in that example. And then I would fail 2 out of the 3.
When you say fail, what does that mean?
I didn't come home with the prize, which is a listing.
So I'll give you an example. So I've been on listings, right, appointments, and I've had people say, yeah, you know what? So let's talk about this. What is this going to be as far as what do you charge? What's this? What's that? What do we need to do here? Give them my advice. And then they're like, you know what? It sounds accurate. Everything you do sounds great. We'll let you know by Thursday or Friday, right? And it's Monday. So you got 3 or 4 days for a window. They didn't say no, but they still got to figure out if this is what they really want to do. Is that technically a loss to you?
No, it will be, because most of the time they don't close. So what you have is most of the time those I got to figure, there it is. Most of the time those deals don't close.
If they don't close, why?
No. If you're walking away with, hey, let me think about it, you didn't learn your scripts. You didn't learn your rebuts. You didn't close. Okay? You need to close, right? Because here's what happens, Dan. You went on that appointment, right? They're still kind of filling you out and try to get more information. So all of a sudden, Pedro calls up and says, hey, sir, I realize you're probably taking applications right now.
This is from the expired list. So
yep.
It's different if it's sorry to interrupt you, but it's different if it's like a sphere, like if it's part of your CRM or your sphere, right? That's a different topic. For instance, if somebody told you that you already knew or did business with or maybe had some affiliation with and they have trust with you, that's a different conversation than somebody that is, let's say you're just calling that off expired and you're just you have to close them at that point, correct?
Right. And the difference is, so for example, you have your past clients you're calling. Mm-hmm. You're not calling your sphere of influence until your past clients give you a sphere of their influence, right? Yes, you can call on your sphere of influence by getting their sphere of influence. That can get a little convoluted. But let's just call them past clients, right? You're calling them, hey, my buddy Joey, man, I told him all about you, Dan. I want you to hook him up, man. Treat him well. He wants to list this house. You call up, that's an easy peasy deal. Those basically are...
Even if they want to wait, still easy.
If it's easy in the term of you get the appointment, easy. Getting the listing takes skill. It doesn't matter if it's SOI, past clients, just sold, expired. Because what people have to do is they have to believe that you're the guy or gal. They have to believe it. So the only way you're going to make them believe that is if you don't sound scripted, but yet you are, that you're confident, okay? You don't even have to be that experienced, right? You can use your broker as the experienced person, right? Or their triumphs over these many years as the experienced, you know. But going back to my example, when you're hitting wave 4, you're in this stage where you're starting to trust the system. You're starting to be able to do it. So now I go on 3 appointments, but I only walk away with 1, right?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Well, what's the story there? I start listening to Mike Ferry's tapes again, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What does he have to say about that? This sucks. I'm glad I get a listing a week, but I went to 3 appointments. Why did I only get 1? And then I started really deep diving on what he was saying on that subject. I when I went to the retreats, I zeroed in when he talked about those. And basically it was always the same thing, which is really good about Mike. He is very just methodical. He doesn't deviate. It's usually the same message. All right? And what he said was, he says, the reason you're not getting consistent listings is because you're going on unqualified appointments. So then I went back and I looked at the other 2 listings that I didn't get. And I asked myself, did you ask all the questions on the pre-qualification script? Yes or no? Script. No, I didn't. So I went out there basically thinking that I could just wing my way into a listing. But you can't. So you need to follow the script, one script to get into the appointment. The second script is to pre-qualify them. And if you're not doing 100% of both of those or a good percentage of those, then what happens is you're not doing the system. So then you'll be frustrated. So I started getting really frustrated because I did not get as many listings as I thought I should have. But what Mike says is if you start going on these qualified appointments, then you, believe it or not, will have more time. So I'll give you an example. To prep for both those listings I didn't get, it took at least 2 to 3 hours of prep time, preparing the packets, seeing the doing the CM, doing the comparative market analysis, getting myself ready mentally, driving out there, coming back. We're roughly about 3 hours of my life. So there's 2 listings. I lost 6 hours in that week. And what happens is he says, if you spend another 20 more minutes pre-qualifying them, then
at the appointment.
No,
on the phone.
you go.
Before you go.
Before you go. Then you're going to save yourself the difference of the 6 hours, right? And then you, instead of going out wasting your time with those people, then you've got 6 more hours to be able to prospect and find another deal, another 2 deals, right? And then when I realized that, I went into wave 5. Now I'm unstoppable, okay? Now it's something else. Now I'm calling in the bullpen, standing, by the way, and I'm starting to ring the bell. I'm starting to ring the bell. People are like not believing what they're seeing, right? They're like, wait a minute, how is this guy getting all these damn listings? And that's because I started really just doing what I was told to do. What? Get the contacts. A certain amount of contacts will lead to opportunity and an appointment. The appointment will lead to an opportunity to get a listing. The pre-qualification will refine the opportunity on the right seller that I can serve. And so I started turning down a lot of opportunity, right? I stopped going to listings where I wasn't 95% sure that I was going to get it. If I wasn't 95% sure, I wouldn't go. And even then, I would go to some of these listing appointments and I'd walk out. On average, I've done it for a few years. I track my numbers. And I was walking out 75% of the time with the listing. Not 100, not 95, but about 75% on expired.
So why do people fail? When you go into a house and after you ask these qualified questions, is it the qualified questions? Because I think it has to be a blend that you have to also be likable, right? Like people have to trust you and like you to a point. The questions are great. It opens up conversation. It opens up takes that wall down probably of what people have when you walk in any sales. Any sales is, oh, you're selling me something. So let's hear what you got to say. And with the right questions, with the right confidence, with the right blend, I think it takes that wall down over time or just at the time of that meeting. Why do people fail? Why do agents fail when they go to these meetings? Is it just the questions or is it a blend of both?
I know I'm extraordinarily handsome and I've got the best personality that ever walked.
Yep.
The truth is there's going to be something that I'm going to do that's going to rub someone the wrong way. It could be anything and I won't know it and I won't get the listing. It could have been something silly that I threw out there that didn't go right. It made the way I walked something. So you're not going to be 100% perfect for everybody that's going to give you an opportunity, right? I mean, I could have showed up and they see this big fat guy at the door and they're like, oh, hell no, I'm not working with this guy. This handsome, skinny guy that showed up a couple days ago, I'm going to work with him. Who knows, right? But most people, if they have common sense, right, and they see a well-dressed professional that they can look up online, see that he's got a decent or she's got a decent track record, they don't want to waste a lot of time. Most people are only going to interview 1 to 2 people, period, before they make their decision. Most, I'm talking 90, 80%, will only interview 1. So the idea of you getting in front of them before someone else is critical. Now, I will tell you a quick story. I've had it to where I drove up and I saw a bunch of Mercedes and BMWs, and I knew they were all realtors, right? And I looked at this and I was like, last of the Mohicans on that one. So I always would go a half hour early, right? 45 minutes early. So you'd see like 3 cars, right? The guy that was just leaving, the guy that was going to go in, and then the guy that was waiting for him. And then I'd be there, right? And I've been in that long line. But I've always asked So
you're lining up behind other realtors to interview?
I've done it many times.
Why would you? So my question is in this, and that's fine. Why wouldn't you focus on something or somebody else because I'm not saying you can't win that, but there's more than enough out there to work with, right? So why would you put yourself to a position where if somebody's going to have 5 or 6 people to interview or 7, whatever it is, why would you put yourself through that?
Well, I'll give you this example in particular. I was talking to a lady and she was sweet, nice, the whole bit. Went through the pre-qual script, the whole bit. When I was done and I was setting the appointment, she says, I got to tell you that I have another 3-5 agents that will be coming between the hours of da-da-da-da. And I said, oh, you do? Yeah. And I said, okay, great. Can I be the last one? Yeah, you can. Okay. When is the last one? Oh, you could be here at 4:30. Okay, I'll be there. So I went a little early to see who my competition was, right? Because the smart ones would have all asked to be the last guy, all right? Or the first guy. But if someone's really determined to interview a bunch of agents, you want to be the last guy. So I show up, I recognize a bunch of the guys that were there, gals that were there, right? And what happened, I walked in, I put on a really good listing presentation without much fuss, without much ado. But by the time I was done with her, she basically listed with me, make a long story short. And the reasons and all that we can go into later, but she listed with me because she saw something that I brought to the table that the other guys didn't bring to the table, right? But I've also been on those party lines, if you will, and didn't get the listing and got the call. Hey, you know what? You were second runner up. Hey, just letting you know.
Why, so what do you think the deciding factor was of why that she chose you, that lady?
Well, I think that one was pretty easy. She liked the fact that I asked her if I could bring a buyer in regardless if we're going to close the deal or not. I've got someone with this price point. Can they show up before you start taking interviews? So I had a team member who legitimately had a buyer for that price point see the property before the other agents showed up. Mm-hmm. When I showed up and she realized, and I told her what I do to sell homes, she was impressed. Not only did I, was the last one in, but I made an impression because I had brought in a buyer just in case, right? So that made an impression. But I've been on this scenario where the people have said to me, I'm not sure why I'm picking you, but I'm going to pick you, right? So there's no real secret sauce on why they picked you outside of you're just going to present well and you're going to visually look well, have a suit on and the whole bit. And then from there, just show them what you've done and what you can do and just be confident. At the end, man, like I say, only about 5 to 6% of the people are going to interview more than 1 to 2 agents, right? Everybody else they're just going to accept whoever gets in the door first. That's why people start calling expireds at 8 o'clock in the morning, because they realize, hey, whoever gets there first is the one's going to take it down.
So one of the things I want to say about that, and that's a great input that you're putting, presentation. You don't have to tell all the nuts and bolts of how it works, but take me through just summing it up, very short stanza, if you want to call it, or just a short window of what you do. What do you do when you go onto a listing appointment?
Well, the first thing I do when I go on a listing appointment is I have all my ducks in a row. I have drove the neighborhood to get an idea what's there. I've looked at all the sales, have an idea what's there, everything that's available, and if I can get in, I will look at 1 or 2 before I go. That's why I told you're wasting about 3 hours of prep time. Okay.
Why do you do that? So just
because if and when they ask you what my opinion is, I want it to be a very solid opinion, right? I've lived in this market that I've been in since 1974. All right. I've been doing this for a very long time.
Okay.
So I can talk very, very intelligently about the valley. And if I know roughly the neighborhood, okay, I can put on a really good show. Plus, my brokers, they've closed several deals in that area. I'm talking about all of our network. All right. So they've seen our signs, so they know who we are. So there's something to be said about having a broker that has a good reputation, right? Regardless of the name brand. But that being said, once I show up, I don't make it all about me. And that's where I am different than a lot of agents. So for example, when I go in, I ask if I could just sit at the kitchen table with them right now and talk about it. Not having to see the house. First, I want to talk to them about the paperwork and what I brought and the price. I'm not there to tour the house, right? After they sign the contract, then they'll want to show me the house. I'll look at the house. But I'm not there to tour the house and ooh and ah about the house. I want to get in there, be polite, right? And if they insist on me wanting to see the house, then I'll say to them, well, guys, hang out here. Let me just go look at it as any other realtor would. All right, I'll be right back. So I'll make a 3 to 5 minute trek around the house, make some mental notes, and then I'm back to the table. Then I'm sitting with them, and then I'm going through the whole listing presentation. My goal isn't to do the whole of the presentation that takes about 20 or 30 minutes. My goal would be to answer key questions and do a 5 to 10 minute presentation, all right? But at the end, it all comes down to being confident, understanding your scripts, and being able to execute them with precision, being able to articulate the message and sounding credible and believable. And that's what I've been able to do.
So I got something here I want to talk about. So you go on this listing. I'll give you one I went on about 3 weeks ago. People, I knew them, right? Go into their house. They look around. Okay, big home. Dogs in the house, so they're barking. So we go out back, okay, because there's a lot of noise. They don't know who I am, the dog, so they're going crazy, right? So I walk in, and I got a CMA, and they know me, so there's not like cars lined up. She says, so here's my original thoughts on this. Here's what our vision was when we bought the house. Obviously, it didn't follow through the way we wanted it to. Here's some of the additions we've done. Here's some things that we've done. We put this in, this pool, this and that. Okay. Hey, you want to go take a look at the house? Sure. So what it come down to for me was, what's the motivation for them, right? What is their real reason of why they're selling? So I'm sitting there thinking, so it got deeper and got deeper. So what it came down to is that the mom helped them buy the house, and they were trying to just basically buy out that house or sell that house to two options: either buy out whatever's left over, one party would, or they take whatever proceeds they had because they bought the house together, and they move on. And the real thing is that the one person that was trying to move on did not know what or where they wanted to go. So the problem is, one person's all good, right? They're going to collect their money. They got a way to go. They a little bit more established, I guess, with certain things. The other party that was involved in this transaction was kind of unsure. And I think that's the part. It's knowing that that's probably going to be the holdup, is that party, and how you overcome objection for that party, and just kind of paint that picture. So when I went through it, the reason I'm bringing this up is I found out what the issue was or what the problem was. And then at that point, it helped me get to a point where they said, hey, we'll try to list with you. Now, unfortunately, I'm still waiting to see what they want to do. I think they're going to wait 30, 60 days and kind of see what's going to happen. And you're going to run into that, correct? You're going to run into people like that.
Yeah.
Right? What do you do with that? You just stay in front of them?
Well, you got to ask yourself a question. Why did I go to a listing appointment where I didn't even know why they wanted to list the house? Mm-hmm. Now, I know you got excited, right? Because these are people and they're just kind of kicking the can around, right? Mm-hmm. So you figured, okay, well, they're my friends anyways. There'll be a social call plus that. Well, right. That was mistake one, mm-hmm. All right? When a friend calls me, or when a past clients, which a lot of them are friends, call me, the first thing I want to do is figure out why. That's number one. And that shows how professional you are, period. So you're talking, you're going through your script, organically. Hey, Joey, hey, I see you've had this house for a while. It looks like it's worth some money. Why are you thinking about selling? And then Joey says, well, the truth is, Peter, that's what I want to talk to you when you get here. Well, let's just talk about it right now, brother. What's going on?
Sure.
Well, my mother-in-law is a real bee, and she wants her money, and she thinks the market's going to go to hell. And so she wants to cash out now while they're getting the good. But I don't know if we're going to refinance to cash her out, or we're just going to have to sell it. I don't know. She's already got her house. We would have to move. But, dude, we got a 2.5% rate. So this sucks. Now, that prequal, I don't know what happened with yours, but I would say, dude, this is a no-brainer. I don't know what's going to happen in the market, but I don't have that crystal ball, but it don't look good. And if you got her on your butt now because she's thinking it's going to go down, do you think that's going to get any better?
No. And
no. So regardless if you go rent or if you go buy, you're still going to get her paid. You can have a chunk of change in your pocket right now. So we could figure it out. Worst case, you rent for a year, right? 6 months. And then if the market does take a crash, like she's saying, then you have it, you're set. Or, when the Federal Reserve starts dropping rates or something happens with that, then they could buy then. But you're taking a big risk, brother Joe. if you don't sell, because the relationship between you and your wife, because of your mother-in-law, is definitely going to be strained. Now, pause. What I do is I beat them over their head. Excuse me. I beat them with their why all day long. And I'm telling them why they want to do that. Now, as far as where they're going to move, their lateral move and all that, then when I'm finished with that part, finding out their why, then I go on to where. So I say, well, which one of you two is picking the house? Is it you or is it Jolene? Well, it's pretty much Jolene. Is she there? No, she's at work. When is she back? She'll probably be back about an hour. You mind if I call you back in an hour just to find out what she wants? So, I can even see if it's available. Yeah. An hour later, I call. Hey, Jolene. Hey, Joe. Can you guys tell me real quick, make it brief, what is it you guys want to buy? Well, I want something just like this. Well, you do realize this is a $600,000 house. And right now you're only paying about $2,600. But you buy another $600,000 house, even if you drop $100,000, your payment's going to go up maybe by a factor of 2. Do you really want to pay $4,500, $4,700 for the same house? Jolene's going to say, well, no, that's not in our budget. Okay, well, then that means you would have to drop down. Instead of 600, you're going to have to buy about 400,000, which means you're going to have to sell a 5-bedroom for a 3-bedroom house. Oh, and by the way, you can't live in this part of town. You're going to have to live in that part of town. Is that something you want? Oh, no and hell no. My kids go to here and do to there and do the other. So then now I'm starting to see the real picture. I'm starting to see that Joe wants just to get out from under the thumb of his mother-in-law. But the wife is like, I'm not going to be
living somewhere that she doesn't
I'm
want to be.
just not downsizing, man.
Right.
This is not the time. So now I know I got nothing. That's not even a real deal. So what I would do is I would talk to them.
When you say that's not a real deal, what does that mean?
That means that they're not qualified.
Why would they not be qualified on that? Just curious.
Because they're expressing to me that they have a why, but they don't have a where. So I can't take them anywhere. And that's exactly what's going on right now, Dan. This is the quintessential example of what's going on now. People are wanting to sell, but they're not selling because they're not going to give up their lifestyle, their rate, right? Because if they were to sell now, right, and even if they were to transfer all their equity into another property, because of the increase in rate, you as a loan officer know this, their payment is going to go up by a large amount of money.
Yep.
And now because inflation sucks, everything's up, people are like, no, I'm not paying another $1,500 a month after giving up all my equity for this new house. I will just wait because I could do a lot of money, a lot of things with this extra money that I would be paying out to some mortgage.
So how do you sell somebody that's in listing today? If you're saying that there's more objection than you've ever had in your life, probably as a real estate agent or lender, rates are up. Who's that perfect match for you to sell a property?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I call it low-hanging fruit. That's when you're hitting stage 5. So stage 5, once you realize now, when you hit stage 4, you're already knowing what to say, what to do, and where to go. Like I wouldn't have even gone to that appointment. I would have been polite, been nice. I would have said, hey, I'm here for you. Let me know when you guys figure it out. Let me send you some houses because I know you qualify. I'd have done a quick pre-qualification on what they qualify for as much equity as they would get. I'd send them the house. If you don't like anything, just let me know, and we'll just wait. Oh, okay. That would have been that conversation. Or maybe I would have saw them on a Sunday because they're friends. When I brought in some burgers, hang out with them, then had a talk. But I probably wouldn't have gone to that official appointment, not on work hours, period. But so your question is simple. What do we do now? You look for low-hanging fruit. Okay. And that's been my modus operandi. I realize that I am as good as I think I am, okay, in getting listings and helping people transition to another property or out of the state. I am not so good that I make people sell their homes when they don't want to. I've never done that. I'm not that good. And even if it was, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So who do I go after? I go after people that are raising their hand right now, expired listings, okay, that are, and past clients, et cetera, that have an absolute need to sell. So let me give you an example. In any neighborhood across the country, 10% of a neighborhood, so let's call it a neighborhood of 300 to use a quick math. 300 houses, 10% of that neighborhood is going to turn. Not because they all want to, but because a certain percentage, 10% roughly, will. So here's an example. Unfortunately, people die. People divorce. People go bankrupt.
Crisis.
Houses go foreclosed, right?
Force.
There's always something going on with 10%. Okay? So I'm going after, and that's 30 people in one neighborhood, for example. I'm going after neighborhoods, okay, that people are raising their hand, or I'm calling in the neighborhood, seeing if they're the ones that are thinking about selling because they have to. Now, I didn't even mention relocation. People are having to move out of this state, for example, to go to another state because of work or because of retirement, right? So you have a good chunk of 10% of any neighborhood that is going to make a move, right? So that's why I go after these expireds. I call just listed, just sold, and I'm looking for those. The conversation that I want to have with someone, it goes like this. Hello, Mr. Joe. How you doing? Hey, good. How you doing? I'm good. Hey, listen, I hate to bother you. I know you've gotten a lot of calls. Oh, you know the end of it. I've gotten 1 million calls. Yeah, I get that. You know what? At least some of us are working, you know. So the reason I'm calling you today is to see if I can be of service to help you sell the house. Well, you know, like I said, you know, a lot of people call. I really want to be bothered. I said, look, you had a reason. There was a reason why you tried to sell. Can you tell me that reason? Well, the truth is I got to relocate. You know, I just got to be in Florida. I only got a couple months. Well, you know what? Then you're the guy I want to serve. Can I just drop off a packet, shake your hand, and let you look at it? This is what I'll do to help you sell your home. You know what? Sure. When do you want to drop it? Whenever it's convenient for you. Well, can you drop it off tomorrow about 3 o'clock? Yeah, but this is just going to be car running. I'm going to knock on your door or hit your doorbell, and I'm going to shake your hand and give you the packet. And then I want you to look at it. And then the next day I'd like to, come in and talk to you about it. Sounds good to me. So 50% of the time I go knock on the door. They open the door. I shake their hand. They say, well, can you come in? Sure. So I come in and I walk out with a listing agreement. Okay. 50% of the time.
So you show up with the listing agreement the next day?
All the paperwork, right?
You print it out?
Sure. I want them to see everything, right? Because that's going to weed out a lot of the people, and I didn't waste a lot of time. I did my prep work. I looked around, and then I set the official appointment for the next day or when it's available for them. So then all of a sudden the next day I show up, and they already saw the numbers. I can't tell you how many times I show up and everything's signed on the kitchen table. They're just showing me the house. I say
you didn't have to sell it.
I didn't have to do anything. Why? Because I'm looking for the person that has to sell. I'm not looking for the person that may want to sell, has a little bit of an issue, a little bit of a problem, like a mother-in-law situation, right? So that's what I'm looking for. That's where I'm putting my time.
Going back to it, qualified questions. It's also weeding out and understanding how through all the waves, wave 1 to 5, what to do. Right. The last thing is that let's say you're making calls. You said you were dialing for dollars from 8 o'clock in the morning. I think you said till 5 or something like that. Some crazy number like that. You took a lunch. What if you do get a listing appointment, or what if you have somebody that, let's say you're doing a buyer or working with a buyer or something like that, and your primary objective is to work 8 to 5. Did you ever hire somebody that would, and this is what I thought about, is maybe it's not there yet, but you hire somebody that goes into the houses after you solidify the relationship to help with setting up, the listing. Like for instance, if somebody's house needs work, you have to go through and you have to give them all the information that this is what you need to do here. This is a problem. That's a problem. You need to declutter, whatever it is, right? So how did you manage that, I guess, on a day-to-day basis where if you get listings, you get stuff like that?
Well, first off, I don't care to help them fix a property, right? I'll send over contractors or whatever. But right now, Dan, the big thing is you're still in wave 2, okay, which is a very frustrating wave. You're calling and you're frustrated. And by the way, I didn't call from 8 to 5. No. I called from 9 o'clock because I dropped off the kids about 8:30, right? I started making my calls about 9, right? And then I had a lunch about 12 to 1, depending, right? And then after that, if I didn't have any appointments, right, I kept calling. And then normally I would go until I got an appointment, period, right? That could go 8 o'clock. That could go 4 o'clock. I don't know. But at the end of the day, when I was initially doing all this prospecting at the beginning of my journey, I needed to build a big, solid base of clients, right, with this new way of doing business, which I did. But it took a long time of a lot of sweat and tears to do it and to learn the system as it was portrayed to me. So my advice to you on your journey, okay, is set your hours and be consistent in those calls. Celebrate your failure. Celebrate it. If you're writing down your numbers every day, which I encourage you, okay, every day you should write 50 contacts, 2 listing appointments, or 1 listing appointment, whatever it is. You should celebrate those. Yeah, you know what? Great. I only need 70 contacts to get a possible appointment. All right, I'm getting closer. But then when you do get a listing, celebrate the crap out of that too, right? Live your life celebrating the possibilities of being in one of the greatest businesses that there is, right? And after a while, you'll set up a base of people that will celebrate you, that will see you as the expert. And as long as you keep in touch with those people, they will continually give you business. I'll give you an example. So let's say that you got 1,000 solid clients over a 4-year period, right? Solid clients. And these customers, past customers, are referring you about 10%. So now you've got 100 possible opportunities in addition to your continued efforts, whatever they may be. They may be prospecting, that you might have moved on to something else, but now there's 100 possibilities. Now let's say 50% of those don't qualify, can't do anything. Now you got 50 possibilities of something. From there, whatever that ends up being, whatever final number that ends up being, that's what I call residual income, retirement income for you. So if you invest a certain amount of time, whether that be 4 or 5 years, making these calls, setting up yourself a good CRM, staying on top of them, then you'll have a good amount of people that will be continually giving you a paycheck from Jump Street. So and that's where I'm at. So right now I've got a group of people that are my fans, right? And they refer me business. And then I do a good job for them, and then I got a new client. So your attrition rate, though, of those 1,000 is going to go down 2 to 3% a year. So you need to get 2 or 3% more every year, which could be your referral base that you're closing, but also some other efforts, whether it be a farm, whether it be your prospecting, whether it be whatever. So you can get yourself in a position where you're controlling your own destiny by having a certain amount of clients that are your fans that will be giving you business as long as they live, right? As long as you stay in touch with them. And that's it.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, thanks for showing up.
Great information, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate the insight. I do.
Yep.
And hopefully out there, people, if they do watch it, they get some nuggets from this, because this is a lot of good information. And I would say, man, that you are definitely a head and shoulders above just the average realtor out there, especially with knowledge and information. I've seeked you out quite a bit on questions. And I don't do that with everybody, but I know you know your shit. So
I appreciate
your time.
Well, thanks for showing up.
Yep.
And have a wonderful day here at Master Agent Mindset.